we started talking about this, it being a specific anniversary. It was 25 years since Horrorscope, since we had put that out. So that kind of put in our heads, maybe it's a chance to do Horrorscope, the Horrorscope record from top to bottom. It was our biggest selling record. It kind of made sense to do. And then as we started to think about really the particulars of doing the show, it seemed like, what could we do that's kind of special, that makes it a little different? I know a lot of bands have done it before. And that's when we started to get into the idea of maybe do 2 records in their entirety, because we just hadn't seen anyone do that.
So the idea was to double it up, make one night special. Actually, where it started, because when I looked back and did a little bit of research, and I was reminded by going through Google that our first live video recording was 30 years earlier in the same part of Germany, in the Ruhrpott. We actually was a bit of a homecoming especially for that Feel the Fire record.
to extreme. Passing through the windows, keying another door. Standing up on me, I never did before. Now I lay me down to sleep. Am I not a power? Tell me what is gonna be. Return. Is everything the same? Cry out. Tell me what shall we see? Return. I hope it's still now. In Overhausen they die, they come out. I'm a one-time killer. I'm a man. I'm a beast-time killer. Doing the best I can. Flesh I'll stab with my rude hand. Spit on the place you stand. Don't make amends for what you'll do. I move on your demands. Imagination running wild. All an only child. Product of our environment. Got blood and style. I'm a one-time killer. I'm a man. I'm a beast-time killer. Doing the best that I can. I adapt to nothing, and nothing pleases me. I'm the loaded pistol. Just wait and see.
the high quality sound at the Carriage House. This is our Steinway.
I was shocked when Dee Dee Verni told me that Horrorscope was their highest charting and best-selling record. I was absolutely shocked. I did not expect that at all. When he told me about them doing Feel the Fire and Horrorscope in their entirety at a show, my first, okay, Feel the Fire, first record, maybe some anniversary thing, whatever, but I was like, why Horrorscope? And he said, it's our biggest record. I go, what? Like, it floored me when he told me that. The foundation was laid with the hardcore metal fans. Then we got a major label deal, got a little bit of video play. Then we went our next record on a major, even more video play. Then another with Atlantic involved, more video play. The band's really coming together. Everything's building, more touring, more people saw us. And then here comes the Horrorscope record. I think it was really about what was done before it, and it was just the right time.
It took some time to get used to tracks like New Machine, Nice Day for a Funeral, or Soulitude, because, like I said, they were bringing in new influences. At least for me, they were new, and combining them with the thrashier side of songs like Coma or Thanx for Nothin.
We always have had a great crew. We've always, kept them close. I know that people have heard that from other bands too, but this is we try to use the same people on a constant basis. I mentioned Dolores. She also TMs for us. She's kind of in charge of the whole thing out there on the road. We use Brovar on guitars, who is just fantastic, guy from Poland, and he's introduced us to Michael, whose last name I still can't pronounce this for this long, so we call him Michael, the Polish drum tech, which is, I suppose, with a name like that, you could have your own television show. Right? So, Big E on the lights. Eric's been with us since early 2000. So this is over 15 years. Eric has been our light guy, and many know him by not just the size of Big Eric, but also the size of his heart and his proficiency with those lights. I mean, he's all about that strobe light and making the Overkill show bigger. Out in the front of house, we had doing sound was Lucifer or Lisa. Lucifer, we actually call her. Lucifer was doing sound that night, and Sophie was doing merch. So, I mean, this is a good crew and a crew that we had traveled with for a long period of time. And it's always been kind of equal partnership with us. Everybody's that valuable. Without a great crew, you can't do a great show.
Overhausen! The gates! Fucking great, man! Fucking great! Overhausen! I like this! You metal motherfuckers, it's good to be back in Deutschland! Where thrash is fucking king! We have one rule tonight. I'm in fucking charge because I say so. You ready? Come on now, don't disappoint me. You ready? Here we go. Thanks for nothing. Tell me what it is you want if you don't even know yourself. Live your life one death at a time. See the road and can't read the signs. All the roads just can't be right. In my ball, in my pride. If you could only see what you wanted us to see. If you could only be what you wanted us to be. I'm not falling for the tricks, the schemes, the same old lies. When it's over, cry for sympathy. Don't ask why.
Thanks for nothing.
If I mean nothing. I better think before you speak. I don't know if I can take no more. Back and in, I'm out the door. How can you say you know what I mean if you're pissing all over my life? Time is precious, time is mine. When you hear that, just be fine. Bless my soul, time has come. Time is dead, sin and run. You could only see what you wanted us to see. If you could only see what you wanted us to see. I'm not falling for the tricks, the schemes, the same old lies. When it's over, cry for sympathy. Don't ask why.
Thanks for nothing.
If I mean nothing. Next time better think before you speak. Verni on the bass guitar. You never think before you speak. Sometimes think before
So, learning the songs and rehearsals. We actually did rehearse these songs, because obviously we've never played them before as a band, at least some of them. I mean, we've done a bunch, but there were a bunch we didn't do. I mean, learning them was painless. I mean, really wasn't very much to it. It was just really remembering the arrangements, and I guess that's about it, really. Yeah, I did have to learn a bunch of solos and change a few things around to get them into key, especially some of the older ones, just to kind of make them a little more modern.
You know, when you go back and you kind of are learning them and you're figuring out what you're playing, you know, I can remember being in the basement with with the guys writing the stuff and kind of where your head was at back in the day, and so some of that came in, which is always kind of cool, you know, that's fun. But I knew a lot of, like I said, I knew a lot of the stuff kind of off the top of my head. I mean, half the time I can't remember my wallet or my keys, but a song, for the most part, once I've written it or recorded it, it's kind of in my head forever. I mean, I could call up almost any Overkill song right off the top of my head. But you do have to touch base on them, because there are some parts that'll come up, they'll sneak up on you, and you just have no clue about a part. I mean, you just have no idea what's coming. And then when you listen, you say, oh, wow, that's a pretty cool part.
Especially with, Feel the Fire and Horrorscope, there's a bunch of songs that we've never done before. For example, Kill a Command, Live Young, Die Free. And, I sit in my little studio and I pick apart the songs and I think I know what's going on and what's being played and this and that. And then we get into the room and I sit down with Verni and Dave and, I sit there and I start playing what I think is it. And they go, oh, no, it's this.
Horrorscope's been in the set. Coma comes in and out. Infectious. But to do songs like Blood Money, to do Live Young, Die Free, these were the ones that were exciting for me because they felt like they were new, even though they were still ours. You know, they felt like, you know, these are the ones that we had to put the time in. So I think, you know, for me personally, the success is the way that those songs came out.
And as far as the Horrorscope record is concerned, I mean, Coma is just crushing. I mean, just all out, just blistering thrash. And then the flip side of that is the title track, which is just this plodding, thick, heavy, sort of Sabbathy thing. That's where you can make the case for people sort of say that Overkill didn't differentiate at all in their music. Well, just listen to those two tracks.
sword fighter. Watch as the weapons fighter. Change is here and the future clear. I can feel it coming. The full of pain, it's getting late. Yeah, I know it's coming. All your choice to just one voice. Yeah, the wind is turning. Change is here, future clear. I can feel it coming. Full of pain, it's getting late. Yeah, I know it's coming. All your choice turn to just one voice. Yeah, the wind is dirty. This is your Horrorscope. Dankeschön, meine Freunde! My fucking heart is coming through its chest, man. Good to see all you motherfuckers. This is a special fucking night. You renamed the city Overhausen. Dankeschön! My mother was right. I was very special when I was young. You like this Horrorscope record now, don't you? Gives me a hard fucking dick. Let's do some more of it. We've been getting ready for a couple of weeks. We've been getting ready for 30 fucking years. Who am I kidding? We call this next tune New Machine. Crucifixion complete. Loosen up to the fire to feel temptation's heat. Gone away to taste the ground, replaced by the incessant sound of fear. There's a ring in my ears. I'm bleeding from
for showtime, honestly, I always feel bad for, our tour manager or whoever's with us, because we don't really have a routine to get to the stage or to start a show. It's kind of like herding cats. It's like Dave is usually up on stage early, way early, like for set change, because he puts his ears in and he brings some beers up there and he has a few beers and he warms up back, behind the back line. So he's on stage, so we never really see him before a show. Derek, me and Blitz are around some. Eddie was not around really too much. He likes to get up there a little bit earlier too, or Eddie be warming up more so in the dressing room. Sometimes we have to tell him to get the fuck out because he's making so much goddamn noise with those pedals and sticks warming up. But the rest of us, it's kind of one guy wanders up, and then, it's up to our crew to run around and say, is the whole band here? Is the band here? And they kind of count off and go, okay, there's 5 people here. Let's start the show. So it's kind of, I guess, I don't know how their bands do it, but that's the way it is for us.
Anything different for the show? Been doing shows for many, many, many years. And most of the times what I would actually do is when I put on stage clothes or anything like that, I would actually put my pants on first, then my boots. But I decided this night, because this was such a special event, that I was actually going to put my boots on first, then my pants. And it turned out to be a really interesting situation, but I got it done, and everything worked out. Show went great.
go, right? We got a lot of fucking music to do tonight for you people. Good old thrash in Germany, nothing fucking better. Loud, fast, hard, cold beer. Cold German beer. What a fucking great place, man. I feel like I'm 50 years old again. This is fucking killer. How you doing upstairs, all right? Let's continue this madness. We're gonna run it right down the fucking line. Just like we did back in 91. This one's called Live Young, Die Free. Sound of mercy ringing in my eyes. Pop from the masses fades away. Though the hits and sounds, it's all the pain that pass. Recall a little story of today. Yeah, I'm feeling trapped, so like a wave, walking the bottom of my head into the black. I will take back, shouldn't be here a while. Need to see your face. Don't need to hear words you say. Don't need to know your name or why you're here. Shadows of the past appear in front of me.
I told those guys it'd be the first time we ever performed Live Young, Die Free. First time and last. I said, you'll never, after 11 o'clock tonight, you will never have to remember how this song goes again, ever. We'll see. I don't see us doing that one again. Although Dave likes that one, I'm like, I don't know. Maybe.
Oh, you know for what it's worth. Nice day for a funeral. It's the last of sunshine. I'm going back to Mother Earth. A cry of independence is in there. Yeah, the last of my time. Oh, you know for what it's worth. Nice day for a funeral.
Well, we had this great idea that we were going to film a DVD and record our first 2 records. And we booked it and we had it all set to go. And then we had some issues with Ron. He just, kind of real life kind of jumped up on him and work related stuff and things he had to take care of. And we wanted Ron to do it. It really kind of made sense. It was kind of, he had done the last 4 records with us, and this was kind of a culmination point. And Ron had been in the band for about 10 years. So we felt like, this will be great. And we did everything we could to try and make it happen with Ron. But it just was not gonna. He just had too many things going on. Wasn't going to be able to get away. So we started thinking, what should we do? Do we just cancel the whole thing? We had already sold tickets. We had announced the whole thing. Seemed like the fans would be really disappointed. We talked about a bunch of different options. But probably the best option was that we should get somebody to play the show, since Ron couldn't. And then the next call after that was to Eddie Garcia.
Eddie Garcia had been with us as long as Ron, but Eddie in the capacity of sound man. We always felt great going into situations where we had little time to set up, because we said we had 2 secret weapons, one Eddie and one Ron, and we could pull a show off under any circumstances. But Eddie was also is also a drummer, an accomplished drummer too, and slid in to help us out, as to not have to fuck up the schedule we had set for ourselves. Eddie was behind the kit and rehearsing and did a stellar job in a short amount of time. So he became Styx Eddie Garcia behind the drums, the Mexicutioner. So we will be forever grateful to the Mexicutioner.
Well, the day of the show and leading up to it, it was, for me, it was pretty daunting. As for that tour, I had to learn like 27 songs, and 7 of those songs were only going to be played at the very last show. And then some of those songs, besides Dee Dee and Blitz, none of us had played them together ever.
So he had to learn a regular tour set as well as both records, and not in a lot of time either. I got to tell you, we'll always be grateful to him that he busted his ass. I mean, he had headphones on, buried with those songs, over and over and over every single day.
Eddie knocked it out of the park. Especially, somebody asking you to learn 21 songs, and by the way, we're going to be doing a tour with that, and we're going to be filming a 1-show DVD with this, so, and Eddie was up for it. Eddie grabbed it by the horns and ran with it, and dragged it into the end zone for a touchdown. I will always, think that Eddie is a great drummer, and a really, really class act for, knocking it through the uprights. Love you, my brother.
closer to out. Of this I'm not afraid, though I don't know what it's all about. I don't know. That we take for the blindness we can't fake. I thought I knew, but now I know what it's like to be alone.
It's hard to say why Overkill didn't break through bigger at the time. It's the same question you can almost ask about right now, because there are a lot of people, myself included, that feel to some degree Overkill are a criminally underrated band. And I absolutely believe that. To me, I've always said this, that you've got the big four, but if I was to expand that to a big five, Overkill would be immediately in that grouping. So now if you ask somebody on the West Coast, they might give you a different answer, because Overkill is an East Coast band. I think that on the West Coast, they had Testament, and a lot of people would put Testament as that number 5 band. If you talk to East Coast people, they'd probably put Overkill there, or maybe some would put Exodus there. So it's kind of like really depends upon where you're from and what your perspective is. But for me, Overkill was every bit as vital and as great and as making as great a music as any of the bands of that time. And I still love their records. I still think that to this day, they're really, unfortunately, for whatever reason, not held in the same regard as other bands from that period. They don't seem to be bothered by it as much as their fans do. Didi and Blitz being the 2 original guys left. I mean, I've talked to them about it many times. They're pretty easygoing about it, and they're just happy they're making a living. They've got the fan base they do. I think the byproduct of that, the upside of that, though, is the fans that they do have now are incredibly passionate and loyal to them. They may not have as many fans as Metallica. They certainly don't. But the fans they do have are as passionate and hardcore about Overkill as any of the most hardcore Metallica fans would be. So that's a trade-off that a lot of people would definitely be happy with and would be willing to take. And I think that's kind of how they look at it. They've built a great career. They've made a living out of being in a band and playing this music, uncompromising music. But yeah, the whole next rung, I think, has always eluded them as far back as Feel the Fire, and to me, even to this very day.
If you attend an Overkill show, you're pretty sure you get the full treatment. I mean, that's why a lot of people always go and see them live on every tour every year. It's kind of a ritual. I mean, it's like, they were called the Motorhead of thrash once, and I guess they live up to that name.
Well, I think Feel the Fire is significant because it was the first record that had the first Overkill on it, which became this, I don't know how many Overkills they've done since, but it's become a big thing it would become a big ongoing thing in the band's history. The song Feel the Fire is a song that I remember so many times going into L'Amour's and hearing them play over the PA and, Blitz singing that part, higher, higher. I mean, people love that. And I would tell Dee for years, I'm like, you guys got to put that back in the set. And he's just like, Dee was always like, oh, it's so primitive. I'm not playing that rumbling bass thing. I'm not playing that. I was like, but the fans want to hear it. And then finally they started doing it again. So, and then Rotten to the Core, which is maybe an all-time Overkill classic, which to this day is still, I think, one of the big songs in their set. So there's some landmark songs on there for sure.
Rotten to the Core is always a fun song to play. Even all these years, I don't think Rotten to the Core has ever been out of our set since the day we wrote it. And playing that, especially for German fans, the German fans are just, some of the best in the world. And they don't like just the new stuff. They like your old records too, and they expect to hear both. So, and that song always lights them up. Everybody's always singing, no matter where we go. That one, to this day, I mean, it's, going on, 30-something years now. It's still a fun song to play. Definitely a fun song to play.
One more time! We say it now, like we said before! Meine Deutschland ist rotten to the core! I've got a secret hidden behind my eyes. Violation, tragedy, violence, hate and lies. Deep within the chamber of darkness is on my mind. Tribute to insanity, our days in time. Rotten to the core. Rotten. Rotten. Rotten to the core. Testimonial, truth and nothing more. Accusation, domino, rotten to the core. Take a look, read the book, you should move that door. Sting the soul, a life you took, you know that's what I know. Rotten to the core. Rotten. Rotten. Rotten to the core. Es ist schön, wieder hier zu sein. In Overhausen. It's been 30 fucking years. 30 years ago. 30 years ago in April. Over in Bochum at the Zesha, we were on the Metal Hammer Road show. And it was our first tour. And it was our first fucking DVD. It wasn't even a DVD, it was a VHS fucking bullshit cassette. So I guess we said we'd be back, and we were not lying. So, Dankeschön, Deutschland! Here we go again! Here we go again!
There's songs that have remained in the Overkill set since these records came out. Songs like Rotten to the Core. We've revisited Raise the Dead. We've done the song Overkill. Blood and Iron and Hammerhead have been in and out of the set. So we've known these songs. But the ones to me that were fun or important to do were ones like There's No Tomorrow or Second Son, because we hadn't done them in forever.
We played Blood and Iron a couple times. It was great to play Raise the Dead. There's No Tomorrow. It's kind of really fun to play those songs because it kind of really breaks it up. Because like I said, we've been doing Rotten to the Core, Hammerhead, all those songs for years and years and years, and all these other songs, are like, it's like fresh. It's almost like we're playing brand new songs.
Fuck yeah, man! Fuck yeah! I'm a skull crusher.
He's a skull crusher. Him. On the fucking drums, helping us out, sitting in, doing the right fucking thing. From the great state of Texas, the band Pissing Razors, and he's been in our family for 10 fucking years. On the drums, Irish Eddie Garcia. We call him the Mexicutioner. And I can hear him itching back there because he wants to show you what he can do. And he keeps whispering in my motherfucking ear. He's like, dude. And I'm like, all right. And he says, Hammerhead! Twisting what's left of my mind.
governor of New Jersey! Diddy Verni! Diddy says, no more fucking around! This next one is right up your ass! Time to feel the fucking fire!
Hello, Mom. Hello, Mom. I'm in Overhausen with about 1,500 really good fucking friends. Metal is in your motherfucking blood, isn't it? It's in your blood. It's in your heart and your motherfucking soul. Deutschland, you make me proud to call myself a metalhead. Dankeschön. One more. We're doing the whole fucking record. We might even play for another couple of days.
Some of these songs we haven't played in a long fucking time. Some we never played.
All these we haven't played in a long time.
All of these.
These.
This mess.
Yeah.
There's a lot of starting off songs that we're fucking up. But by the time it gets to you, it'll be all perfect.
The Killer Command Saga. This was obviously, I mean, you would know it. It's a song of Feel the Fire toward the end of the record. And, not something we had done since the early days. I mean, I don't remember doing this song after, like, the 80s. And maybe not even after 87 when Taking Over had come out.
I think Blitz made it look like maybe he didn't know the words. But it wasn't that he doesn't know the words. It was just that none of us knew where the fuck we were. Kind of started off okay. The song started off, we were all good. And then somewhere along the line, we just got turned around.
Well, the only thing that I could say about Killer Command is that I myself, Derek Taylor, played that song absolutely perfectly. It was the other four guys in the band that fucked it up royally.
It's pretty simple, really. It's our director's fault. Yeah, Kevin Custer, he put up the wrong cue cards and, quite frankly, really fucked up. We just, he screwed everything up. I mean, what are you supposed to do about a thing like that? Directors and their damn directors' eyes.
30 years to feel the fucking fire because of you? This song was maybe played live once or twice in our whole career. So something special tonight. It's called Killer Command.
Take the soul. Right in the wind on a stormy night, as a mother's son to take your life. They say he died 10 years ago. The list of victims seem to grow. Like father, like son, the Bible read. 3-6 his friend, the top of his head never heard. See, then too late.
Overkill!
Down your mind! Driven by the host of hell with its spinal cross, showing skull, the victim dies, no fucking loss. Overkill, bury the cross, our scarlet sin, the soul is weary. Should they hear more tell, never fear. Fallen angels will open the cell. Overkill's victim enters hell. Who can tell me who I am and I'm overkill? Devil's sin, questioning as I walk the path. I am overkill. The devil's wrath when you walk alone in the night. Bone to chill, skin so tight. Beware the sound of a galloping horse. Overkill is another cause. Overkill will never fall. Satan shall learn. Overkill will never die. Overkill the devil's wrath. You made this fucking night great, man. We were thinking to ourselves it just wouldn't be the same without ending this the way that we usually end it, if you know what I mean. We have a long history, and we still make noise today. And we're honored to say that this was the first place on the whole fucking world that we toured was Deutschland. But always remember, we don't care what you say! Fapistic! We don't care what you say! Call us fucked up, you call us crazy! Say we want you, say we're lazy! Say we're just a violent type! Trying to tell you we're not too bright! We don't care what you say! Fuck you! We don't care what you say! Tell your friends we're really sick! Lord, facts on a company trip! You should know cause you're so cool! Number one, you ain't nobody's fool! We don't care what you say! Fuck you! We don't care what you say! We don't care what you say! Fuck you! We don't care what you say! Step on the wood and jump on him! This is one game everybody's in! Give me a minute, I'll pay look! So by now, we're gonna cook! We don't care what you say! Fuck you! Don't care what you say! We don't care what you say! We don't care what you say! Fuck you! We don't care what you say! Figure illusion. We don't care what you say! We don't care what you say! We don't care what you say! Fuck you! Fuck you! Fuck you! Fuck you, man! Derek Taylor! Eddie Garcia! On the guitar, Dirty Dave Linsk! Dirty! Fuck you! Adios, motherfucker!
The thing about Overkill is, after all these years, to me, I see them now, they're as good as they've ever been. I mean, they're really like a machine. And I love the fact that, to me, their fan base still seems to keep growing, despite not being much airplay or the commercial viability of the music they play. I think that when you stick around and persevere as long as they have, people are just going to immediately, you have no choice but to not respect what they've done and how they've stayed and hung in there with it and done it on their terms.
Blitz and Verni, I mean, those guys are, to be honest with you, they're legends, and they're, I mean, you can't really deny that. I mean, after all these years, putting out all these records and still going strong, it is what it is. And I'm proud to, be on stage with those guys, or being a part of this band and making Overkill history. I'm very glad to be a part of making Overkill history.
We've been working on this for a year and a half, and it seemed like I blinked my eyes and it was gone. But I do think that, the key here is that that's the way, all shows are. They're kind of over in a moment. It's about, they're instantly history. But this is kind of history that can be re-celebrated by the people that were there, or by people who weren't there, by seeing this DVD and, maybe seeing how hard we worked on it and how intently we mixed it and how much production we brought in. So I think that afterwards I was, I kind of felt exhausted, but I'm really excited again by getting up for the mix and putting the artwork together and, let's say, continuing that Overkill saga. The fire still burns.
Really, it was just kind of felt like a celebration. The fact that we got to do it in Germany, honestly, was great. I mean, the German fans have been so amazing to us for forever. I mean, since the day we showed up on German shores, the German fans have just been absolutely phenomenal to us. And when we came out for that show, when we first came out for the show, and all the kids were holding up the signs that said Overhausen instead of Overhausen, with the Overkill logo, and we had no idea. That was a complete surprise to the band. And the Skull Crushers, of course, the Skull Crushers. It was just a great time. I mean, to have all our crew guys there, to have some friends and family there, old-time friends and family there. Really felt like a celebration, and it'll be like a night I never forget, Even if we wind up doing the records again, here or there, it's, that was the first time we did it. And it just was a great night. It was a great vibe. It felt cool to do the records. It was just a fun night. I'll remember it for a long, long time.
I put them on a stage up against anybody in that genre of music, and they will hold their own. I mean, they are a powerhouse band, and it's really encouraging for me to see how good they still are live, and the fact that their fan base continues to grow. They're never going to be the critics' darling. They're never going to be the band that's going to get any sort of real radio or video airplay. They're always going to do it on their terms, the way they want. They're not bothered by it. Some bands are bitter that they're not bigger. We just give them a lot of respect for that. They're not. They're just very happy guys. They're happy to do what they do. Their fans are super loyal, super passionate. And I think in that genre of music, they always have been one of my favorite bands, and they still are.
We are who we are. We're just 5 blue-collar slobs from New Jersey that make thrash metal music. Bottom line.
Fuck you. Fuck you. Fuck you. Fuck you. Fuck you.
Fuck you, you pay, you bum!